Ramblin man here. Okay, so I wanted to rep some merchandise that I got from the Officer Tatum. If you don't watch his show, you should. It's freaking fantastic. But, well, I think it is anyway. And so there's a lot of jokes. He's a former police officer. And he had been a police officer in Tulsa. And he really backs the blue, okay? So, as well as I do, but he also, there's so much about white privilege and black privilege, and he got on the point of, he created this shirt called Christ Privilege. I'll let you see this here. It says, "No man can close doors God has opened to me, for me." So, I'm not going to keep wearing this thing because it is hot as all get out. It's a sweatshirt, but I had to have it. It's fantastic. So give me just a second. But what I wanted to share with y'all is, like, tonight's video is going to be a little crazy because I am not going to stay on any one topic. If you're a kid growing up in Texas, I'm sure other places too, but in Texas, let me just tell you, one of the things that we actually deal with here is we just make up our own food. So there's a dish called goulash, and I'm sure a lot of you have had it. If not, you're missing out. I mean, I like it a lot. But, you know, when you're a kid and you're trying to make, when you're a parent or an aunt or uncle or something, and we had big families down here in Texas, and we're trying to make something for everybody, you just throw it all together. It's called goulash. And so everybody makes it a little bit different, but we'd put hamburger meat, and my aunt would throw canned corn in there, and just a whole bunch of like vegetables and stuff and everything. It's fantastic. But that's how this video is going to be. It's just a mixture of everything. I could get on one subject, which I will. Tomorrow, I'm sure I'll go on just certain subjects. But there's so many things going on right now that I want to touch on everything a little bit. So I know last week Biden had his speech and our press conference. I call it a speech just because I felt like he was reading most of the time. That's just my opinion. I'm telling you, and since this is my channel, I can have that opinion. Feel free to comment, because that's what's great about America. You can, for right now, you can still have freedom of speech and say what you want to say. I've gotten a lot of different feedback from people on what things are going on right now in the world, as far as like people feeling like our freedoms are disappearing, which, if you look at it, they are in danger of going that direction. I mean, when you're talking about, there's mention of passports, you know, people having to have vaccinated passports showing that you are vaccinated before you can even travel across the U.S. or use the bus system. Or, I mean, there's a lot of different things, and these are not even proven vaccines. Now, I will tell you this. I intend to get the vaccine. My wife has it. She's a, frontline worker, and I'll tell you, like, I think for what I understand, that, like I said, things develop all the time. We hear about this happened and this happened, and like I said, it's totally your choice as to whether you get the vaccine or not. That's why I'm just going on here and let you know I plan to get it, and it's not for really me. I'm not really worried about getting it, and I'm not even sure if it'll prevent. But if I can do my part in order to prevent someone else from getting it, then so be it. So I will be getting that. As far as kids, I know a friend of mine, her daughter is 16 and she's getting it, or she may be a little older than that, I don't know. But I know she's getting it, and she was a little concerned about it, and rightly so, because we don't know a lot about it, but at the same time, she decided to, and I felt like it was good that people supported her and said, you know what, whatever you're going to do it. It's whatever's best for your family. And that's why I feel, whether it's a vaccine, whether it's a mask, whatever it is, I think one thing we need to stop doing is shaming others for what their choices are. But I'll just tell you this much: if someone doesn't have a mask on or hasn't had a vaccine, it is not your place to tell them they're wrong. If someone does have one or has had the vaccine, it's not your place either to tell them that they're wrong. So they talk about, this is the one place where live and let live is where I'm going to tell you it probably is the best place. Whether or not I feel strongly about everyone should have a vaccine, or whether or not I feel like someone should not have a vaccine, or wear a mask or not wear a mask, that is beside the point. That's not my place. If it's mandated by the country, then at that point, we are required to. But until then, I would suggest if you're going to go to a place and you're vaccinated, you feel safe, great. If you're not yet and you feel like other people are out there just throwing germs around, I know it sucks, but you may have to just stay home longer. If you are wearing a mask and you feel like someone's not being safe, I would suggest you not walk near them. And if you're in a place where you just can't get away from that and it's not required by that store or whatever you're in, whatever building you're in is not required, and no one is really wearing them and you don't feel safe, I wouldn't go in there. But in the same regard, if one person in there has a mask on and you don't feel like you should wear a mask and there's 5 or 6 other people not wearing masks, it is not your place to tell that person they're wrong. So I'm just telling y'all, let's be kind to one another in that regard. I'm just getting things off my chest tonight. And you can watch this whole video or you can be like, you know what, screw this, I'm getting off here. Well, Ramblin' Man's going to ramble today. So then we talk about all this hoopla. People are talking about everything. It feels like to me, this is, like I said, it's my opinion. It feels like to me that all these, the people, every time that something comes on, right now they're using Jim Crow era like it's a preposition. I'm telling you, like it comes out on everything. Unless you're Joe Biden, then you call it Jim Eagle. That was the stupidest thing I heard in my life. But anyway, we're talking about voting. Now, on the voting thing, I don't understand. One thing I don't understand, so I started looking at it and looking more in detail. And that's one thing I want to tell you right now. If you are going to come in and comment on a video or a post on someone, know what you're talking about. I mean, come on. Like, people say the stupidest things and they're uneducated. They really don't know. If you don't know, do some research. I mean, it's all over the place. You can't just go to one source, though. You can't just, like, I found it on this deal. You have to look at 3, 4, 5 different spots and see what is the consensus. What is everyone else saying? Because if one person, and you happen to get the one guy that's a conspiracy theorist, he's going to have, you know what, we're going to do vaccines and everybody's getting implants. They're going to be able to track us. Okay. But then you're going to talk to some other, if you look at the other side, they're like, vaccines 100% good, which is not true right now. I mean, even the CDC is saying it's about 90% effective, which that's a lot better than 0%. A lot better. It's almost 100%. Like, 9 out of 10 is going to work good to prevent it. So, I mean, it's getting better in that aspect. But like I said, if you're going to respond to something, make sure you pay attention. Make sure you look your stuff up and you know what you're talking about, because nothing looks worse than someone's like, oh yeah, well this, and you're wrong. So that's just my opinion. I think it's funny. People get on there and they get on their high horse and start talking about crap. And let me tell you, there are some dumb people in this world. And I'm sure somebody's going to come in here, why would you call someone dumb? Because I call it like I see it. Stupid is as stupid does. I mean, Forrest Gump said that, and I'm telling you, it is true. Like, my uncle always said, never underestimate the stupidity of the general public. And that is true. Never been spoke truer than right now. Because everybody, because of social media, you don't just have people doing research from the news media itself. You have everybody. And this guy could be like, hey man, so I woke up this morning and I had 4 beers and you know what I think? And we're like, God, you're going to hear from it. And you don't know that he's that guy because his name might be John Wilkins or something crazy. Just sounds like a fine, upstanding citizen. But on the other side of that, he is tore up, drunk, and trash. I'm just saying, these are things that go through my mind. You have to be thinking them too, because you're thinking like, who would post this stuff? Who writes this stuff? And that's how it's going right now. You're talking about a time that we just can't trust everything you see on the internet. Do your research, people. So back to the laws though of voting. Now I've seen people mention like, Amendment 15, 19, and 26, along with, talking about the Second Amendment and things like that. Second Amendments, have to do with our right to bear arms. 15, 19, and 26, why do those sound familiar? Because those are the ones that you're not allowed to discriminate on voting based off of age, race, or sex. Now, I don't see that that's being done, but when they start talking about in Georgia, let's just throw that out there. And Georgia starts talking about the laws and stuff for, how often you have to, if you're going to do absentee balloting, you need to do that between 90 days or 62 days and 11 days before the election or whatever. Well, if you already know you're going to be absentee voting, you should already have planned and say, I'm going to do this. And they say, well, what if you're called away on an emergency road trip? How many people do you think are going to be called away on an emergency road trip? These are just one-offs. If you travel, 75% of your job is traveling, you might want to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to do absentee ballot. Go ahead and apply for it. How hard is that? You send it off, you get it in, you do it. But if for some reason you happen to be there, you can go vote in person, because there was so much noise made about mail-in voting this last time. Not just absentee. Absentee's been going on for a long time. That's not the problem, because military does that. We did it all the time when I was in the Army. We'd just, fill it out and you mail it off. We all did that. You do it for basic. You do it wherever you're at. You can do that. And the other part about this is people are talking about Jim Crow era. Okay, they're saying, well, what if somebody doesn't have an ID? How can they? Look, if you're over the 16 years or older, why wouldn't you have an ID? Unless you're illegal and you can't get an ID. What is the big deal? If someone says, well, I can't get an ID because what is the big deal about having an ID? You can't limit me from voting if I don't have an ID. If I don't have an ID, why would you limit me from voting? Because how do we verify you're who you say you are? Because then, think about this. If I don't have an ID, I'm being real here. If I don't have an ID and I say my name is Jeremy Herrera, and I go in there and I was like, no, I'm Jeremy Herrera, I live at so-and-so, and they're like, okay, they see that somebody lives there, and they take it down and I vote. Then I go to another voting place, and when I get there, I tell them my name is Jeremy Hopkins. Because somebody might see me and be like, hey, Jeremy. And I'm like, okay. Well, they don't know my last name from anything. I go in there like, I don't have an ID because now I voted twice. And how are you going to say that's not me? And people will say, well, it's because you have a social. You know how many fake socials there are too? I mean, come on. It is not hard for people to go by. How bad? Why is it such a big deal? Why is it Jim Crow? So they're talking about because it affects the minorities. They said this voting will keep minorities from voting. Minorities don't have IDs because every person I know has an ID, except for kids, and they're not old enough to vote. The only time that they don't have, even like people that get DUIs and they take their license, they don't have their license, they still have an ID. Because they're like, hey, you need to go get an ID. Because you need an ID to do everything. If I wanted to get a hunting license, you have to have an ID, or at least the ID number, and then you have to assign it. And I mean, there has to be some kind of record. Why is this a big deal? It's because people are making it a big deal that doesn't. That's what I'm saying. Like everything that we do right now is a big deal, and that's so stupid. This may be a long video, guys. I'm telling you right now. I'm throwing stuff out there for you to think about, because, like I said, this is a goulash. This is just a bunch of stuff thrown in here. Why is it that this is such a big deal? Now, I thought, man, that's crazy to make it a misdemeanor to give food and water. They're not saying you can't have food and water. What I looked on there and found out, they can't have it within 150 foot of the voting station, of the voting booth, okay? So if you go in, if you're 150 feet, they can give you all the water you want, so you're in line. Once you get to a certain point, they don't want people coming in like, hey, because you're not allowed to campaign at the voting site. So that's to keep the people from, like, last minute coming up to me like, hey, you know what, Jeremy, you should really vote for so-and-so. Because I'm like, you know what, that's a good idea. And then I go vote. They're not allowed to, so they're trying to keep people away from, it's like keeping the scalpers away from selling tickets on the front steps of games. It's the same difference. They don't want anybody campaigning there, so they make it 150 feet. That's 50 yards. It's across the football field. It's not that far. So if you're in line, I know everywhere I voted, it moves pretty fast. It moved really fast. So I don't see, if you couldn't get a drink at 200 foot away, and you're like, nah, I'll put it off, and you get into within 150 feet, that's on you if you're hungry or thirsty by that point. You should have drank or ate something, and by that time, you have to go to the bathroom anyway, so it's pointless. So look more into the voting stuff and see why it is that everybody feels like this is Jim Crow era. We're not trying to keep it isn't like anybody's trying to keep minorities from voting. This applies to everybody. It's not like that one town, and now I'm forgetting where it's at, but you know exactly what I'm talking about as soon as I mention it, where they're trying to, they call it as like reparations, like the private funding, where if you make $59,000 or less, you get $500 a month unless you're white. How is it right? If we went and did that over here, right here, downtown where I live, we said, okay, everybody less than $59,000 or less, if you're white, you get $500 a month. Anybody that's not white, if you're colored, that's it. You're not getting any of the money. Could you imagine? So if it's right for one, it should be right for another. I don't understand how we're making things about race on every dang thing. I'm so tired of that. I have friends of all shades and colors, and I like to keep those friends. And I'll tell you right now, it's one of those things that I just feel like I say we, because some of us aren't doing this, but a lot of people are just turning this into something it doesn't have to be. And that's where I'm at. I'm just tired of it. I'm so tired of it. Now, we're going to jump down to the illegal immigrants, because I love talking about this because it just keeps growing all the time. Now, I know one thing is, y'all probably saw this. I may have, on my last video, I may have mentioned it, but they talked about Arizona's not having this problem of all the illegals coming over. Not anymore, because they had a area from Yuma to Nogales, and that is about a 400-mile stretch that was supposed to have all the wall built there. Well, they got 225 miles of it, so over half. Well, that stops a lot of people from coming over. It's not just wide open. Now, you think about all the Texas border. It's like 1,400 miles. And guess how much of that giant 30-foot wall we got? 52 miles. That's it. 52 miles of it. That's all before Biden stopped it. So we're just kind of stuck here, Let me know your thoughts on this stuff. This is legit things that are going on. Now, I did start working out today and watching what I eat, and I feel great. I would highly recommend it to everyone. Anyone that wants to do it, I would say go for it. It's amazing. On top of that, though, I would say that, I'll probably be tired the next week or two, but then I'll start feeling really good. And the outpouring of support for my channel has been amazing. Everybody that's listened to it says, hey, I like your videos. Just keep it going. Now, my son caught me the other day. We were out and about, and he said, I really think you should do the podcast. A lot of people would like to hear a podcast. So I'm going to find some people that I can put on here, and they'll be much longer. They'll probably be 30, 45, maybe even an hour long, and we just shoot the breeze, and it'll be fun. So I do like to have fun, believe it or not. I just wanted to get back on track here. I hadn't really had a good, substantial, any kind of good video with any substance to it in the last couple of days, just because I just been thinking about what I wanted to talk about. And to be honest with you, it's just one of those, I'm just ready to get things going and have America be great again. There's talk right now, of Taiwan, and U.S. has always been there to protect them. And there's talk of by 2027 and that's only 5 years away, that if China decides to make a power move towards them, we don't have the aerial or Pacific, in that whole Pacific area, we couldn't stop it. And so we're kind of losing power in that regard, and they want people are calling for, I say people, some of our officers and things are calling for us to change over some of our arsenal and things in order to prevent that. Because that's the last thing you want, is for China to keep getting bigger footholds in different areas. We're worried about stupid crap about voting, which everyone has the right to vote if you're a citizen and you can have an ID, right? We're worried about why we're building the wall, because it might hurt someone's feelings that's coming across illegally. We're worried about vaccinations, like, make me get vaccinated. Okay, don't make me wear a mask. We're worried about these things while China's over there like, these morons are busy worrying about stupid crap while we're sitting over here just building up our arsenal. And when we decide to move in and take over someplace, who's going to stop us? Everyone looks to the U.S., but are we going to be able to do that? I don't know. We may lose our foothold in that regard, and that would suck. This is a great nation. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't think this is a great nation, you can pack your bags and leave. We have a lot going for us. I want y'all to think about this. Quit looking at social media and thinking that it is the know-all, because it's not. The biggest deal right now I can tell you is you have people that do not care about what you think. They don't care about you, to be honest. Their biggest thing right now is, can I sell this person on this and persuade them that I'm correct? We have a bunch of politicians right now in D.C., both Republican and Democrat, that, don't get me wrong, there's some that are out there that are good people, but a lot of them, it's kind of it's like that joke, like, how can you tell when a politician's lying? When their mouth is moving. It's one of those things, you just can't trust anybody except your friends. You know who your friends are. You know what you're talking about? Like, if a hard time hits, that's when you know who your friends are. That's where we are right now. You know who your friends are. Lean on your friends, lean on your family, and be kind to one another. Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of what's going on in the world. Like, now, you can follow me and you understand that I do not agree with transgender at all. God, if God created you a man, it wasn't so you could go change yourself to a woman, and vice versa. I see it, and I'm gonna call like I see it. I see it as a sin, and that's exactly what it is. Just like anything else, it doesn't mean I don't love those people. And if I throw a joke out there about a transgender or a gay or a straight person or someone, a white guy, or a Mexican guy, guys, This is called America, and we would make jokes. I grew up in high school and middle school. We made jokes all the time, and you could call a thing like it was, and people thought it was hilarious. Nowadays, if you even say boo, everybody's, oh my gosh, could you believe he said that? It's stupid. It has come to a point of just ridiculousness. I'm telling you, ridiculous. It pisses me off because I feel like I'm losing the America that I love. And I'm tired of that. At some point, we as Americans have to stand up, whether you feel like it's too big to stand up against or not. It's not about Republican. It's not about Democrat. It's about people. When people start pushing things onto, requiring, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. We're going to take your guns away. We're going to do this. We're going to take these books away. It is just like what happened in Germany with the Jews. I'm telling you, it may not be against a certain religion, but it is the same. And history tends to repeat itself. And it's like I always use that analogy. You start boiling a frog, you just turn that heat up slowly until next thing you know that frog boiled and never even knew it happened. I'm telling you, pay attention, people, because I do not want to lose the United States that I love. This is my America. And I hope you'll join with me and trust that we have this. This is what we were. God chose us to live here. Why? I don't know. We could have been stuck in the middle of Africa. We could have stuck in the Congo in the middle of the jungle, or in Colombia with all the drug lords. We are blessed that God chose for us to live here. And you may not believe in God, and that's okay. But I'm just telling you, from my belief system, God chose us to live here, and we've been blessed in that regard. We cannot take that for granted. Hold the ones you love. Remember that Texas is the best state. No, but love one another. Remember, we're in this together. These United States can be great again. We just have to get out of our own way. That's all I have to say tonight, I think. I'll get back on topic tomorrow. I hope some of you watch this till the very end so you can get an idea of where I sit with things. But thank you guys for subscribing. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Sorry this one was so long. Y'all have a great evening. Love you guys. Ramblin' Man out.